Just realized we weren't recording. We're going to go ahead and start that recording again. I still don't have the download. So when you're on that property and you head to the More tab and you head over to where it says Skyslope, do you see a screen that looks like this? It's going to say Skyslope, not .loop. I don't have a Skyslope account attached. Okay, and then here you don't see import documents. Okay, so if you're not seeing it, like I said, it could be that that property is a listing. Is it a listing or is it a sale? Interesting. I'm going to have to look into this. I think my documentation is incorrect because I assumed that we could import from .loop, or I mean from Skyslope, as long as it was a sale. But based off of what you're saying and based off of a screenshot that I just received, it's showing that we cannot import documents from Skyslope. We can only upload documents to Skyslope. Yeah, so I'm going to have to double check my documentation and just see what's going on and make sure that like we have that correct. This could just be down to, again, I'm usually using the .loop integration and that integration is much friendlier. But I'll have to look into that and see if that's still the case. I completely thought that we could import from Skyslope. Sorry about that, Wes. All right, next question. What is the best way to set up default holidays and contract rules landing on weekends when working in multiple states? So typically what I suggest is that you have multiple date templates set up for that. But the other part with that is going to be making sure that we have our underneath our global settings, we'll find federal holidays. So it's going to be underneath that gear icon down at the bottom, global settings. Underneath federal holidays, I would just make sure that you have all of the federal holidays that you need in here first. So here's an example of some of the federal holidays that I have. Juneteenth is one of the ones that we've had a lot of requests for. This one is in here. So if you needed to add in any other dates, you could, specifically if they're state specific. You could have them added in here and then you can say what you want to happen with this. So for example, this one says, and it looks like it's actually going to fight itself. So I'm going to change that to roll forward to Monday. But, oh, actually, no, that says lands on Saturday. We want it to roll back to Friday, lands on Sunday, roll back to Monday. Okay, good. Actually, no, that's fine. But you can build out and you can add in different dates here for your federal holidays. Now, when we're talking about that date template itself, if you're working in multiple states, most likely the calculation for them is going to be unique for each state. Sometimes it's unique to each county, right? In certain areas, the inspection contingency period could be 21 days. And then in other areas, it could be 35 days. Or in other areas, especially if we're doing a lot of quick closings, it might be 10 days, right? So it kind of depends. I would say have a date template built out for each one of your states. And then in those, I would have their own individual date, calculation within them. So for example, this one's kind of built out very generic. The appraisal is built out in 21 days, or it defaults to that appraisal due date. Same thing with the inspection period. Right now, it's defaulting to a due days field. When we're talking about that weekend federal holiday rule, this is really just up to your discretion. I would go based off of what your contracts say it would be for that particular state. So if in California, we have most of the stuff say that it needs to land on the actual true date, then I might not want a weekend roll or federal holiday roll. However, if my contract said that I do need it to land roll backwards and I need it to land on that Friday, versus landing on the following Monday, I would want to just have that set up on my date template underneath that particular date. Right now, I have this one set up as 3 calendar days after execution date is when the earnest money due date is due, currently rolling back. And let's say it's counting federal holidays as well. So if it was gonna land on that Friday, it would count that federal holiday and technically it would roll back to that Thursday, right? If Friday was a federal holiday. So I could say update here. And now it's going to follow those particular rules for that. But in this one, we can change it and we can have it run off of, business days if we need to. What if one state celebrates a holiday and another state doesn't when we do global templates? So that's actually a really good point that you've brought up. I would definitely submit that to the ideas lab. What's the case for that? I mean, I believe from my understanding, when we add in a holiday here underneath federal holidays, it's going to apply for every single property, regardless of if it's in a different state or not. But maybe there's a way that we can check that. Submitting it to the idea lab and getting it over to our developers, having them kind of scratch their brains over it and try to figure out what that would look like. The only problem with that is that it would be, this is, setting up the global settings for your entire system. It's a little bit harder to have it say only if it's in this specific state, apply this particular date. So it's something to definitely consider when you're building out your date templates. But yeah, currently there's no way to have it where, that date is only going to affect these specific states versus all the other states. Great question, though. Great question. And if you don't know how to submit an idea, if you haven't already, you're going to head over to your little person icon in the top right-hand corner. You're going to go down to Idea Lab and you can pop in your idea here. We might even have one already. Like I would just type in holiday and see, cool, holidays observed, settings for intake forms. It might be one of these, edit global holiday settings. Might be one of these already. So here's an example, right? Oregon does not count Columbus Day as a non-working day. So it would be helpful to make sure we don't skip it in timelines. I'm sure there are other places where local bank holidays aren't aligned with federal holidays. So this is a great idea. We do take those ideas every single quarter and we kind of go through them. We've made quite a couple cuts to this list as far as for what we've done. If you're ever looking for an update on it, I believe we're trying to figure out a way to get like an email notification out or something similar to that to say, hey, your idea is being reviewed right now. We have a team that kind of goes through, reviews the ideas and sees what makes the most sense and kind of what's most top needed. And then we kind of go through them at that point. As those ideas are updated or as those ideas are taken into consideration, changes are made, you can always check the change log. But like I said, you should also receive like some sort of email communication. Hey, you posted this, or hey, you like this. We've made this update. As we continue to grow within Open to Close, we are looking at other ways to get you guys notifications, whether we're posting that on Facebook or we're posting that on like a community page that everyone can join. It just kind of depends. Cool. Any other questions? Feel free to load them into the Q&A. Cool. So I've gotten a couple questions about adding or deleting team members from your Open to Close account. So number one, you're going to want to be logged in as the admin or as a person who has access to the organization and users of your system. So first step, we're going to head over to our gear icon. We're going to go into organization and users. I'm currently logged in as the admin. That's me. I'm community. So I can add in as many team members or agent portal users that I need to add in. When I add in a team member, I'm adding on another paid seat. Okay. Keep in mind when you guys are adding in a team member, I'm going to go ahead and let's add in myself. If I add it in with my email address here and I try to send myself an invite, because I'm already using this email address for a different login, it's going to fight me. It's going to say, hey, no, you're already using this somewhere else. You can't use it again. My best suggestion for you guys, if you run into that issue, is I'm going to go ahead and grab, my Hannah at Open to Close one right here to give you an example, is to add in an alteration to that username. Okay. So for example, I do use Hannah at Open to Close on occasion, either for client portals or for agent portal roles. You can see here I have an example underneath my agents that Hannah plus agent portal is an example of a user that I have. So it's still Hannah at Open to Close, but I've added in an alias of sorts that allows me to bypass that username is being used, right? So if I put in +, team member. I could also put in a + and put OTC if I'd like to. I could put in a + and pop in my TC company, right? You can put in your domain name if you'd like there as well. So open to close would be my domain name if I needed to. But what this does is it creates an alternate version of that email, but it's still associated with that original inbox. So let's go ahead and kind of go through this. I'm going to add in Hannah, open to close, team member. I'm just going to go ahead and add in my name, Hannah, team member here. Hopefully no one else has that. I'm going to say create the user, and it's going to send out that invite to me. I might need to refresh my screen. So let's go ahead and just refresh that really quickly. Head back down to our templates, into our organization and users. Here's that team member. Sometimes that happens, especially when we're in the testing environment. Now, the way that that email looks, just waiting for it to come into my account. Here's an example of the way that email looks. So we can see here, it pulls in that email. It sent it to my Hannah at open to close email. This is my email account. So it pulls in that email. Here is the username, and then it shows me my username, and then it shows me my password. So this is how it looks like when you're inviting a team member. This is also how it's going to look like when you're inviting an agent as well to your open to close account. Looks very similar to like this. If you're ever like, oh, Hannah, I can't find it. I can't find my invite. My agent can't find the invite. It could be in spam. I'm going to drop in chat the email. So hello at open to close is who you receive the email from. I definitely suggest grabbing that name, pressing enter and searching it to see if you have any other invites. So here's another one. Your login has been created. Here's that agent portal user that I created. But you might see other emails from open to close that says your open to close account has been created. It'll share that username, that email, the password, because this is just a fake password. You're going to reset that password. You need to go to create your account, and then you'll have access to that account. If we needed to delete a team member, let's say, oh, whoops, actually, I don't need Hannah on here anymore. Well, first thing that we're going to want to make sure is that we're going to want to make sure that Hannah's not on any of the other teams. So I'm just going to go ahead and add Hannah to a team. So, oh, I actually need to remove Hannah. She's no longer a team member with us, or maybe, we just don't, she's not doing work within open to close anymore. I need to reduce the team user seats that I have currently right now. For whatever reason, if you needed to remove a team member, we're going to want to go to the team that they're assigned to. So currently Hannah's assigned to the community team, and I'm going to want to delete her from the team. So I'll go ahead and click on the trash can icon. I'm going to want to reassign any intake forms that were assigned to Hannah and reassign them to the other team member on that team. So here I'm just choosing community team. That's the team that I'm removing Hannah from. And then I'm also selecting community team as the user. This is for the properties and for the intake forms. Obviously, we just created this account. They don't have anything assigned to them, but you still need to go through these steps. I'm going to say delete from team. She's gone. She's no longer on there. The moment I know that Hannah has been removed from all those teams, I can then click on the trash can icon, type in delete, and delete Hannah from my system. Now, again, like I said, sometimes we have some issues with caching, so I might need to refresh my screen. There we go. Let's go ahead and head back down to organization and users. And now we can see that that team member's been removed. So if you run into that same issue that I did, where it just kind of hovered there and it said that it deleted it, but it didn't delete it, try doing that, right? And if you run into another situation, for example, we have this one here. It says to be deleted, delete me. If we go and try to delete this particular user, sometimes it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes it just loads and it loads and it loads and it loads, and it's trying to delete this team member, but it can't. If you ever run into a situation where you're trying to remove a team member, you follow the steps that I just showed there, and you're like, Hannah, it's still not working. It will not let me remove them. The first thing that I want you guys to do is I want you to go to their permissions, and I want you to remove all of their permissions. This will make it that even if they log into open to close, they may be able to log in, but they're not going to have access to anything within your account. Okay. Once you've made sure that all of their permissions are removed, I want you to reach out to support. We're going to need to get a developer to take a look at your system to see what's going on. This is normal stuff that we run into. Sometimes these guys, especially this particular user, it's a little sticky. They've been on a ton of different transactions. Sometimes when we try to go to remove them, it doesn't always work as easily. So if you guys are users, you've been on the system for a really long time, you're trying to remove someone who's been on there for a really long time, and you can't, remove their permissions, reach out to us in support, and we'll make sure to get that user removed. I'm glad that this is here because I'm glad that I get to show you guys this example. Because next week, most likely in the next 2 days, it's going to be completely gone from my system. Let me know if there's any other questions that kind of sparked from that, learning about how to add or remove team members or what that email looks like or any of that. Other than that, we have another question about password reset. So when you guys are going to create your email, let's say you did not follow the steps to create your account, someone else created it for you, or let's just say you forgot your password, right? We can always go to forgot password. So on our login page, right, when we click to log in to open to close, you can see here that it's trying to autofill my emails. We're going to want to click on forgot password. Here, you're going to enter in either your username or your password there, or I'm sorry, your username or your email there and send that password reset. And then it's going to email your account. So if I type in Hannah plus agentportal@opentoclose.com and I say send password reset, what that's going to do is it's going to send me an email and it's going to prompt me to reset my password. Here's what that password resets looks like. I'm going to want to click on my password reset. And then here I'm going to want to enter in my new password. I'm not going to do that on our recording though. But that's how you would reset that password if you were running into password reset issues. Cool. Back to login. Let's go ahead and get back into our demo account. Let me know if there are any other questions. Feel free to drop them into the Q&A. I am actually just going to reset this password since it does expire. Alrighty. Okay, so no questions yet. A couple of the other questions that we've gotten are just about agent portal access and client portal access. I kind of talked to you guys a little bit about how to add in your agents. When we talk about giving people access to open to close or what party members do we need to give access to open to close, we're really trying to look at what do they need to do within open to close. So for agents are going to be the ones who are submitting intake forms. So I'm going to head down to organization and users as long as it loads. Looks like I'm having some, looks like it's taking me a minute here. Let's go ahead and just log out and try to log back in. Here we go. Head to our organization and users. There we go. So once I head into my organization users and I go to agents, if your agent's already set up their account, when you go to impersonate them, it's going to look a little something like this. We're going to see that red bar at the top that lets us know that we're impersonating. We'll see the transactions that they have here. They'll have access to contacts if you give them permission to the contacts. They'll have access to the intake forms that you assign to them. They'll have the ability to share credentials with you guys. They'll be able to have the ability to pay you guys. If you had a Stripe integration, you needed to receive payment from your agents. They'll also be able to set up some personal settings, just like the time zone and currency, and if they want to see the how it works tips. For this particular portal, the only people that truly need access to this is if there are party members who are sharing credentials with you, or there are party members who need to fill out that intake form. Okay, that's really the only time you need someone as an agent within open to close. You can have other people who are not agents in open to close. Okay, as long as there's someone who needs access to the intake forms and to sharing, credentials, I would say have them in there as an agent portal user. Now, for our clients, it looks similar, but instead of them having access to the intake form or the APIs, when they log into their account, they're just going to see access to those properties. And then depending on how you have their roles set up, so portal roles, here, let's grab this buyer. Depending on what access you give them here will depend on what they get to see inside of that actual property. So when they click on the property right now, if they have this particular role on them, they'll just see the details, the documents, and be able to download the documents. For my buyer 2023, they have a lot more options. They can see the timeline, the details, they can see the contacts, the documents, uploading and downloading. For my seller, they have no permissions right now. For someone who's every property role, they have timeline, details, contacts, download, and upload. For my buyer broker, right? Let's say I needed a broker on here. I don't want to have to pay for another seat, but they want to be able to see all the transactions. You can have them as a portal, client portal role, and you can have that buyer broker role on them. That gives them access to everything, right? This is me deciding that I want to give them access to the timeline details, contacts, all of the information with the contacts, documents, uploading, downloading, tasks, completed, scheduled, and unscheduled, and notes. In this case with the buyer broker, maybe we don't want to give them access to downloading or uploading the documents because again, they're just kind of there for review only access. But maybe we do want to give them access to call contacts. Maybe they want to check in and go, "Hi, I'm the broker. Just wanted to check in. I know that my like how are things going with my most recent hired real estate agent?" Whatever that looks like for you guys. You can give them access to that. Let me know if there are any other questions on how to add in those portal roles or what those agents or what the difference is between the two. Cool. For setup, where do you recommend starting? I'm going to want to do lots of triggers, documents, or tasks added. I haven't figured out if it should be on the intake form or as a task. So it kind of depends. For getting like started in open to close, I'm always going to recommend joining our webinars. Just because those are live trainings, we focus on one subject on that call. We also have them pre-recorded. Kelly, if you wouldn't mind sharing that link with Sandra, I think that you should have access. And if you don't, I'm going to give you access right now to those guides. So if you want to watch pre-recorded ones of, our trainings, that's probably where I'd start. But when it comes to kind of deciding your triggers, where do you want to do what, right? It depends on what plan you're on. So right now, the account that I'm under is on the scale plan. What this means is that I have access to property triggers. The scale plan is our $399 plan. It is the most expensive plan. It is also our enterprise plan. So think about it as like you get everything, the bread, the butter, the whole dinner. This is like Thanksgiving feast over here when it comes to the scale plan with all the features that come with it. The great thing about it is that with those property trigger templates, instead of you building it out that it's only on the intake form or only on the tasks, you can have them trigger off of other conditions as well. So if you're on that particular plan, I definitely suggest reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, I'd love to get on a consult call with one of our team members and kind of talk about what that looks like for you to kind of grow into that system." If you are on the Grow or the Pro plans, that's going to be Grow plan or the Pro plan. You're going to have the traditional ways of creating your properties. For example, you're going to have those, intake forms, right? With the triggers that brings on the different things and your tasks with the triggers that bring on different things. It's not going to have that scale capability. It's not going to have those property triggers. For those ones, what I usually suggest is think about the timeline. If you can create like a very quick timeline, like bullet points of what your typical transaction is. Think about your favorite transaction, the best transaction that you've ever had, right? I always say build your system to cater to your most perfect transaction. And then as things start to go haywire, right? Or if things change, oh, I just received an addendum. When I receive this addendum, I have to do this task and this task and this task. That's when you're going to start to do these little additions to your system. So build out your perfect timeline. Once you get that perfect timeline, I want you to mark when you need specific tasks to populate and when you need documents to populate. And if you need everything right at the very beginning, right when that property is created, you need all of your documents, you need all of your tasks, then you are going to want to add those triggers to your intake form. You're going to want it that the moment that intake form is submitted, you've got all of your fields. The moment you approve that intake form, you've got all of your templates, similar to how I have this particular property set up. If on your timeline, it's different. On your timeline, you're looking at it, you've gone through it, and you're like, I really don't need the closing tasks or the post-closing tasks until I'm already closed. I don't want to see them on the property. So for example, this property here, if I go to tasks, I've got all of these tasks right here, right? If I'm like, I really don't need my post-closing tasks until I'm already closed, until I update that status, until we're at that point, I don't want to have to worry about it populating. What we can do is we can have a task, and I'm going to type in close and see if I have it here. I believe it's going to be this one. If not, we can definitely build one out. I think it's my final task. This is my walkthrough. Does my walkthrough do it? My walkthrough does not do it. If we had that, right, this is the final walkthrough date and time. I might want to have a trigger on there that says, when this task is completed, I've scheduled my final walkthrough. When that task is completed, I also want my post closing tasks to apply. And so when you're going through and you're kind of mapping out that timeline of when you need certain things to fire off, you can have that baked into your task templates. So here now, when I mark off this task, verify walkthrough date and time, we've verified it, it's good. Not only do I send out an email confirming with that buyer that we have the walkthrough time scheduled, but I'll also have my post-closing tasks apply to the property as well, because maybe I'm right at the end. I need my post-closing tasks after we're done with the walkthrough. So that's kind of where I would start. So create a timeline, figure out when you need your documents, when you need your tasks. If you need it at any point other than the very beginning, identify where in your task template you want that particular task to fire off. I'm going to go ahead and pull open our task template, our main buyer under contract one, and kind of show you guys the tasks here. I'll go ahead and click on sort tasks and then zoom in and scroll down so you can kind of see them a little bit better. There we go. So start post-closing tasks. This is that task that I was looking for at the very bottom of that buyer's template. So if I check off this task, it starts the post-closing tasks. If the contract is terminated, post-closing tasks aren't needed, but maybe I need my termination tasks, right? So this just gives you an idea of what that looks like. Let me know if you have any other questions, because that's a really great question. But like I said, Sean, I'm going to butcher your name because I'm really bad at reading names out loud. But if you have any other questions, you can definitely reach out to us. Or if you want to schedule a consult with us, we can kind of go through and kind of see where you're at in your setup, where you'd like to kind of be. We are at the end of time, so I'm just going to give you guys my last kind of minute thing with open to close. So if you guys are looking for some more support, or if we didn't get to all of your questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us through here. If not, you can always email us at help@open-to-close. If you're looking for more webinars, you can always go to our Learn tab and head to webinars. This is our live webinar page. Next week, we're going to be going over settings and integrations. And then the following Wednesday, we're going to be going over documents. If you're looking for written guides, you can always go to Learn and go to Help Guides. We also have the help guides underneath our support center. So in Open to Close, when you log in, you can go to your little person icon, click on support center, and send us some information here. Yeah, thank you for joining today. If there's any other questions, let us know. Other than that, have a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. And I will hopefully see you guys next week.